Tesfai Hailu is preparing to live as a refugee in Sudan's eastern Kassala state. He arrived here 10 days ago from Adebai in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region, leaving his wife and children behind. He says the deteriorating situation for Tigrayans is what forced him to leave home.
The Amhara militias there detained thousands of us Tigrayans in containers. Many were killed and their bodies thrown around. I saw many bodies and had relatives who were arrested. They mostly targeted men because they're afraid the Tigrayan Defence Forces would recruit them, so I had to leave.
Tesfai is one of the few dozens of refugees who've recently arrived to this reception center less than 5 kilometers from the Ethiopian border. But not everyone makes it here. Last week, dozens of bodies were found floating in the Setit River, which flows between Sudan and Ethiopia. Many had their hands tied behind their backs and suffered gunshot wounds. Camp authorities say refugees they spoke to have confirmed the identities of the bodies as Tigrayans who tried to cross the border into Sudan.
We have recorded more than 200 refugees arriving, and then the bodies started showing up in the river. Most refugees we have interviewed have come from Humera. They came with emotional distress.
More than 10,000 refugees are now here in this center. At least 60,000 have fled to Sudan since the beginning of the conflict late last year. Many refugees here had high hopes the conflict would come to an end when the Tigrayan Defense Forces took over the capital, Mekelle, in June. But more people have been arriving from the region in recent weeks, and their stories have raised concerns whether they'll be able to return home anytime soon. The conflict in Tigray is now expanding to include other regions of Ethiopia. The United Nations Refugee Agency says that is causing concern about a potential new refugee influx.
We've had about 200 from July that have arrived. We find this to be quite high because from January to June, the numbers have actually been quite low. In some months, we've actually had 0 arrivals. We continue to advocate with the government for us to get the authorization, together with the Commission for Refugees, to be able to relocate them to designated camps within Gadaref state.
Tesfai says he knows the situation in the camp is not ideal, but at least it's safe. He says he now hopes to find a way to bring his family across the border until the conflict ends and they can all return home.